This is Gemara and Chagigah Daf Zayin. All the learning should be an incredible schos for Shlema, for Shmuel Yosef and Henry Veda, Man Vega Chaim and Zara. Shlomo Stephen Reizel Eitel Zara Baskin to Basim Bas Chaisa yourself and Mindel is their parents when Yudish Avalei Shlomo Bas Sami Shafi Chachana Shmuel Ben Til Din Khan Reizel Chaim Bas Mina Dinena Bashin Mindas Viva Vega Dvar Rivka Bas Shava. Naftali Sibim Mechlester Amram Ben Yaakov Tzara Baskil Shem Yisachim Ben Asi Yehudis Vel Avram Rachel Adaya Shem Ben Chana V'Gal Pero Bas Ezer Gavrela Bas Nuni Yishal Yitzchak Ben Dina Rucham Yiska Miriam Bas Cyril Bracha B'Say Yishar Chali Yisrael as well as Chos Shidach for Yisrael Chaim Devar Shem Raz Yizel Gittel Shendel Bas Shem Markel Merchav Shendel Gittel Bas Shendel Shema Ben Chaya Ofik Ben Teli Shlomo Ben Levi Zahava. They should find the Shidach B'Karei Mamish and Baruch Hashem to share some more incredible news that one of the Chalim that we were davening for, Baruch Hashem, is home, healthy, doing much better, and almost on the way to a complete recovery. We pick it up on the very bottom of Vav Amud Beis with an incredibly famous quotation. Says the Gemara in the last line of Amud Beis, and Anasam Elu Dvarim, the following item, She'in Lem Shir, that they have no shir. Ad infinitum, says the Gemara. Peah number 1, Bikurim number 2, Beharayon, which is going up to the Beis Hamikdash, which is what we're going to talk about. Rashi here points out that Peah Hashem does not give any shir, and Din Derabanan is 1/60th. Bikurim, Kimilas Chasadim, and Talmud Torah, all entities that they have absolutely no shir. As much as you could do of them is what is necessary. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yochanan Kesvura Nulaymer, we thought to say Harayon ein lo shir l'mayla. Says Rav Yochanan, we thought that when it comes to Rayon, when it comes to going up to the Beis Hamikdash, there's no shir l'mayla. You could go up as much as you want. That we're going to see, is this referring to going up, appearing in front of the Beis Hamikdash, or is this referring to the Oilas Riyah, the carbon? We'll see in a moment. But says Rav Yochanan, we thought it's only on the top, but on the bottom, we thought that there is a shear. We thought that there is a minimum, like we saw in the Mishnah, that the Oilas Riyas be worth 1 silver ma. Achabar Rav Aishia B'Rebbe V'li made harayon. Ein lo shear lo lamala ve'lo lemata. Avol Chachamim oimrim. Now this is not Chachamim oimrim, that the sheet of the Chachamim, as Rashi points out, Kalaimar, which always means it's not the simple reading that this is a din derabanan. Avol Chachamim oimrim haraya ma kesef. That's a din derabanan v'chagigah shtei kesef. So on the daraisa level, there's no minimum, there's no maximum to the carbon oila re'iyah. Midirabanan, there's a minimum of 1 silver ma'ah. Says the Gemara, my harayon. What is this rayon that we're referring to? So we have a machlokes, the classical Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish, Rav Yochanan Amarias Panim Ba'azar, referring to you going to the Beis Hamikdash. For Reish Lakish Amar, says Reish Lakish, no, Rias Panim Bikarbon, means showing up with a carbon. So says the Gemara, let's minimize exactly what this machlokes is. When we're talking about the ikar of the regel, what does that mean? Rashi points out that's on the first day of Yontif. Everyone agrees that you gotta show up with the carbon. What's the machlekes bishar yemoisa regel? What's this referring to? All the other days of Yontif. And furthermore, the Gemara thinks right now that anytime you show up to the Beis Hamikdash on Yontif on any of the 7 days, and you bring a carbon, we accept it. Keep ligi, what's the machlekes? The asa v'loyaisi. You come up to the Beis Hamikdash without a carbon. So on that's when the Rav Yochanan Savariyas Panabazara, that it's referring to you yourself showing up. That what as you can go as much as you want. You went, you were b'oila regel. Do you need a carbon? Not necessarily. So the fact you came up without a carbon, says Rav Yochanan, is perfectly fine. Reish Lakish Amar is panim b'carbon. And what does that mean? Whenever you come, you don't have to come. But if you show up, you have to bring a carbon. So says the Gemara, what's the machlokes of Yochanan Reish Lakish? On day number 1, everyone agrees you got to bring a carbon. On days 2 to 7, if you show up, says Rav Yochanan, you do not need a carbon. Says Reish Lakish, you do need a carbon. It says the Gemara, 3 questions. Reish Lakish to Rav Yochanan. You Rav Yochanan, you hold, all you have to do is show up. as the Gemara coined Riyas Panim Ba'azara, whereas Rish Lakish says Riyas Panim B'Karban. So Rish Lakish says to Rav Yochanan, you're telling me you only have to show up. Lo Yeru Panai Reikam. The pasuk says you can't appear Reikam, empty-handed. As Rish Lakish, seemingly the pasuk is referring to the necessity and the need to bring a Karban. Amar Le, Rav Yochanan responds, Ve'ikar Regel, and that's going to be the answer to every question. Is we're always going to deflect? No, that's only referring to the first day. Ace question number 2. The pasuk says that you should not appear your face empty, and the Brisa says it's referring to bizvachim with karbanos. Timer bizvachim in alabayfais is referring to bizvachim, an animal or oifais, a bird. Umenachais and a karban mincha. Videnu, it's a kalvachaimer. Nemra chagigah lahedyev and emarias ligavaya. Ma chagigah amar lahedyev. Just like the karban chagigah that's referred to by the Hediyat Zvachim is referring to what type of animal? An animal. Afriyas Amuralik by Zvachim. Uma Hein Zvachim. Eilos. You have to bring an Eilah. Ataymer Eilos or in El Shlamim. Vidinu. Nemer Chagigah Lahadiyah and Nemer Ria Ligavaya. Ma Chagigah Amur Lahadiyah. Beria Loyafaria Amur Ligavaya. Beria V'cheina Adin Shaloy Shulchancha. Your table, it's Yantiv, and you're sitting there feasting. Malay. V'shulchan Rabach Reikam. So after the lengthy address of this brisa, what comes out? That you have your karban chagigah, that you have your table, you're eating of food, and Hashem's table has to be full. So ask Rish Lakish to Rav Yochanan, Hashem's table has to be full. The brisa clearly is learning v'lo yiru panai reikam, that you have to bring a karban. How could you, Rav Yochanan, say it just means to show up? Amar le Bikar Regel, again Rav Yochanan deflects that that's referring to only on the first day of Yantif. Continues the Gemara, question number 3. Says the Brisa, Rav Yehuda says, Shalish regalim b'shana nitzavi sala alis beregel. 5 lines from the wide lines, 3 times a year we have to be oile regel b'chag hamatzos, chag hashvuz, chag hasukos. Ve'ein near in chatza'in, and you cannot show up chatza'in in pieces, in groups. Mishum shenamer, why? Kol zechorcha, you all have to go up. Ve'ein near reikanim, and you can't go empty-handed, says the Brisa. Mishum shenamer l'panei reikam. So again, we have another Brisa clearly referring to they have to show up with a karban, amar leib, ikar regel. So 3 attacks the Rish Lakish wages against Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan says, you show up, you say hello to God, you don't need the animal, you don't need the sacrifice. Rish Lakish says you need a karban. 3 different applications of the pasuk v'lo panei reikam, clearly proving it means a karban on each and every one. Rav Yochanan deflects. You're right, you need a karban. That's only on day number 1. And now the tables turn and Rav Yochanan shoots back at Rish Lakish. You Rish Lakish said you need to bring a karban, 2 lines on the wide lines. These are Rav Yochanan the Rish Lakish. Yira. It says in the Torah that everyone should be seen by Hashem. And what does it mean? Ma'ani bechinam, af ata bechinam. Just like Hashem sees us with nothing, so too you could see Hashem with nothing. So says Rav Yochanan, you could see God with nothing. Do you need a karban? No. Yiru panei bechinam, af ata bechinam. Ella. So says the Gemara, we have to reinterpret the machlokes Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Ella, the first white line. Kol echad da'asav lo aisi. If you come up to be a regal and you don't bring a karban to kliyam lo pligi, no one argues. The ayol umischazi v'nafik. That you're allowed to come and you're allowed to leave. Again, the first way of learning the machlokes is this was the point of contention. If you go up empty-handed, do you have to subsequently bring a karban? Rav Yochanan said yes, Rav Yochanan said no. Now the Gemara is saying no. Everyone is agreeing if you come, no problem, good and dandy, no karban necessary. Ki pligi, what is indeed the machlokes Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish? Da'asa v'aisi. You come and you bring a carbon. Rav Yochanan Damar Riyas Panim Ba'azara, only you have to show up. Riyas Panim Udein Lashir. Now this ties us to begin to what we started with today. What's this harayon? What's this coming to the Beis Hamikdash that has no shear? Says Rav Yochanan, you know it has no shear. No, you could do ad infinitum as much as you want. Your face, you're coming to say hey to God at the Beis Hamikdash. Hale carbon, says Rav Yochanan. Yesh la shear. Rav Yochanan said there is a shear for the carbon. You're not allowed to bring as many carbonas as you want. You're only allowed to bring one oilas re'iyah. Anything more is not accepted. So new way of learning it. Are you allowed to bring a carbon past the number one of oilas re'iyah? Rav Yochanan says no. Reish Lakish says yes. So Esvei asks the Gemara in Reish Lakish, Hukar raglecha mi beis re'echa. So Rav Yochanan asks Reish Lakish, you just said he's allowed to bring as many carbonos, multiple oilas re'iyah, but the pasuk says Hukar. Your foot should be scars from coming to the Beis Hamikdash. Seemingly teaching us don't bring excess carbonos. And you, Reish Lakish, said you're allowed to. Answers the Gemara 5 lines into Y lines. Also bechatas v'ashamais kid Rav Levi. That pasuk is talking about chatas and an asham. That's when you should not have many. Those are for aveiros. But the oilas re'iyah, says Reish Lakish, that you can bring as much as you want. Kid Rav Levi, Damar Rav Levi, Rami Ksev. We have a contradiction. It says, you should not come to Beis Hamikdash with karbanos so much. You should come with karbanos. So what is it? Yes, karbanos or no karbanos? Like Gashakan B'chatas V'Shamais. That you don't want a lot of. That's for Aveiros. Kan Ba'ilais Ushlamim. That's when you should bring as many as you want. That's when you should not bring so much. Maybe it's oilus and shlamim. When the pasuk says, that's when you're supposed to bring as many as you can. That's when you don't want to bring so much because it comes from an avera, and that is the machlekes Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish with regard to ra'ayon, how much you're supposed to show up. You could come as much as you want, but are you allowed to bring a carbon oilas re'iyah multiple times or not? That is a machlekes. Says the Gemara ve'nira chatzayim. The previous price that we quoted, we said that when you're going up to the oila regel, you should not come in chatzayin groups, but rather kol re'yacha, kol b'chayrecha. Everyone calls the charecha, everyone should come together. Savar Rav Yosef on the last line of Zayin Amud Aleph, Lemeimar, Mandisle Asara Banim. He thought, what does the pasuk mean not to come up in groups? If you got 10 kids, 10 sons, don't bring 5 kids up today to be the regel, and 5 kids tomorrow. That's what he thought Chatzayin meant, to bring up your children in groups. And I'm like, Abayab Shita. That is obvious. Maybe the reason. How can you choose? You're making some kids into paishim. They're negligent. They're not coming right away. And some kids into reason. That can't be what the pasuk says. You have a mitzvah to be the regular. Everyone should come right away. What does it mean? You should not go b'chatzayim. The Tanya Acherim, and we should sound familiar with this a few days ago. Hamekame is one who collects dog excrement. V'amitzarif necheshes, he creates a copper. V'abursi, and one who works in a tannery. Paturim mina hareiyah. He does not have to go up to the regal. Why not? Shenemar. Kol zechorcha, misha yachol latles im kol zechorcha. Someone who can come up to the regal with everyone. Yatu elu she'ein yachol latles kol zechorcha. They're not able. Why not? Because they stink. Not everyone could go with them. That's what the pasuk is coming to exclude. And we continue with the second Mishnah of the Masechta. Says the Gemara, with what funds you use to buy karbanos? Where does the cash come from? Says the Mishnah Zayin Mebeis Oilas b'Mayid ba'is min achulin. The carbon oila, the oilas re'iyah, which you bring on Mayid, referring to Chala Mayid, as the Gemara will explain. You bring from chulin, from unconsecrated property. You cannot bring it from kachim, from money for meiser sheni v'ashlamim. But the carbon shlamim, that is yes, brought min meiser. Yontav harisha shal Pesach v'shami oimrim min achulin v'is oimrim min meiser. What about the first day of Yontav on Pesach? L'shalmei Chagigah. What money do you use for that? Says the Gemara, Beis Shammai says Chulin, Beis Hillel says Meiser. Yisrael Yotzi Chavasim and Adarim and Adavos Uba Meiser Behema. Yisrael is allowed to bring their carbon, not their carbon, but allowed to be yoytze, their din of being v'samachla b'chagecha, the din of rejoicing, the din of having a wonderful festive meal in Yantif. Yisrael is allowed to be yoytze that with nedarim, nedavais, meiser, with any monies, meiser be'ema. The kohanim are also allowed to be yoytze that with karbanos, chatayis, v'shamus, v'buchar, v'chaz, v'shaik, avalei ba'ifais, loy b'menachas. You can't use a bird, you can't use a mincha. The din of simcha Yantif dictates beef, meat. So a kohen could use his meat that he got from the chatas and the asham, but he cannot use oifais or the mincha. Says the Gemara, what's the implication of the first case in the Mishnah? The Mishnah said the carbon oila, the oil is tamid when? On Chala Moed. That's when it has to be brought from chulin, from unconsecrated property. Says the Gemara, the obvious implication is that the carbon oil is that is brought on Yantif. If you bring an Ayla, you could bring it from Meiser, but ask Gemara Mai. And this rule is such an important rule, and it's a rule that translates all the way from Karbanos and Meiser Sheni in the Beis HaMikdash to nowadays to any Chiyuv and any Meiser obligation, as the Gemara says. Davar shebechayvahi, that the carbon oil on Yantiv is a chiyuv, is an obligation. Davar shebechayvahi no ela min achulin, only brought from chulin. To give one example, we just had it's Pesach Katan here in Yerushalayim, depending on the day. Not Pesach Katan, excuse me. Purim Katan. On Purim, everyone wants to know: can you use Meiser money for Matanis Avyonim, for Mishach Manis, etc.? The answer is Davar Shebechayva, you can use it from. So the obligation of, for example, Matanis Laniyim, that cannot be brought with Meiser money. But the obligation is one little bit, is a pruta, says the Rishayin and the Ritva. But anything more than that is a hiddur. A hiddur could be, but not the chiyuv, not the actual obligation. That's the rule of the Gemara. So ask the Gemara Vaiter. Maybe you'll tell me a Kamashlan to Eilis boys b'yamtev einoi boys. Maybe you'll tell me you only bring the carbon oil on Cholamayit. You don't bring the carbon oil on Yantif. Keman, but who holds that? Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai, Revi'in Shlam Nevein Seimchan Aleim. Says Beis Shammai, a din that we've had in the past, that on Yantif you're allowed to bring a carbon shlam. You can't do smicha. You can't lean on the animal because that's being mishtamesh. That's using a balchayin. That's forbidden on Yantif. Avalo Eilos. Says Beis Shammai, you're not allowed to bring carbon oil on Yantif. So if that's what the Mishnah would be teaching me, that when do you bring the oil only in Cholamayit and not in Yantif, that would be Shitas Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel Revi'in. So answers the Gemara, no, that's not how you read the Mishnah. There's some missing ingredients from the Mishnah as follows. Boys, an oil on the Davan and Davois, not the oil of the carbon of the Yomtiv, of the oil is Re'iyah. A different oil, an oil of a Neder and a Dava, that you're allowed to be brought to Cholamayit, but beyond Tavena Boys. Ve'oilas Re'iyah, and that's the part we're inserting, but the oil is Re'iyah, that's allowed to be brought, I feel a bit Mayid. Ukshiba, when you bring the oil is Re'iyah, in a Ba'ela Mina Chulin, that can only be brought from a Chulin because there's an obligation. And now the Brisa continues, Shalmei Simcha, the carbon Shalmei Simcha, that's the din. Samachta b'chagecha, that could be brought from Meiser. The Chagigah's Yomtav Arishal Beisach b'Shamir Min Achulin Beisil Min Meiser. So then to this brayso, the answer that we're giving is we're differentiating. If it's in a neder and a dava, that's the oil that can only brought in Cholamayit, not in Yontif itself. What oil can be brought in Yontif? Only the oil is Re'iyah. Now the brayso is continuing and telling us that when it comes to other karbanos, the Shlamim and the Chagigah, Beis Shammai says it comes from Chulin, Beis Hillel says it comes from Meiser. Tanam Yahachim, we write this as we finish off for the day. Oilois Nedar Min Adav has been Mayid on Cholamayit Bais, B'Yantavena Bas. Ve'oilois Re'iyah, Paul Afilu B'Yantiv. That could bring B'Yantiv. Ukshi Ba'ina Ba'ela Mina Chulin. And the Brisa concludes the Shami Simcha Ba'nav Min HaMeiser. Chayis Yantiv Rishal Beis Hillel Shamir Min HaChulin Beis Hillel Min HaMeiser. And we'll conclude with the question of why are we making such a differentiation? Ma'ishnach Chagigah Yantiv Yontif Arishon Shel Pesach. Why did it hone in on the Chagigah on the first day of Yontif, seemingly of Pesach, seemingly it's by all Yom Tovim? Amar Rav Ashia Kamashlan, the Chagigah's Chamisha Asar in Chagigah's Arba Asar Loi. This is not referring to the Chagigah of Arba Asar. That is the carbon Chagigah that is brought in order to make sure that you're full, so that you eat the carbon Pesach ala soiva. That does not have to come from Chulin. That carbon is allowed to be brought from Kachim. Alma Kasavar, as we turn over to tomorrow's Daf of Chesam and Aleph, Chagigah's Arba Asar Lav Daraisa. Must mean it's not a Din Daraisa, it's not a Davar Shebichayva, because Davar Shebichayva can only come from Chulin. For the fact that we're saying the Chagigah's Arba Asar, the carbon that fills you up before eating the carbon Pesach, is allowed to be brought from Meiser, shows us that it's not a Din Daraisa. We'll pick it up from Amar Mar in the next year, Amir Tzashem.